Hello friend. I want to tell you about the Mercedes W140 car. Majestic, powerful and durable. These are the terms that perfectly describe the features of the Mercedes S Class W140, which, although it has become a classic a few years ago, is still available for ridiculous money. That is why it is a tempting car for young people who want to feel the highest level of Mercedes in a car that costs several $1,000s. Majestic, powerful and durable. These are the terms that perfectly describe the features of the Mercedes S Class W140, which, although it has become a classic a few years ago, is still available for ridiculous money. That is why it is a tempting car for young people who want to feel the highest level of Mercedes in a car that costs several thousand. Engines. In the 90s, Mercedes offered more engine versions than many manufacturers of economy cars do today. Those were the days when the designation on the hatch roughly corresponded to the displacement. S280 meant the basic, 6-cylinder unit with a capacity of 2.8 liters and an output of 193 horsepower. There's no point kidding yourself that this is the right engine for this class of car. The same can be said about the S320 and 300 SE versions with the same engine design, but enlarged to 3.2 liters with 231 horsepower. Each of these versions was available with a manual gearbox. It is worth noting that the 6-cylinder units are inline designs. The diesels were also not very powerful. In this model, 6-cylinder Ohm 600 series engines with a capacity of 3.0 and 3.5 liters and power of 177 HP and 150 HP respectively were used. The torque was not impressive and did not differ in values from the basic petrol versions, 310 to 330 Nm. So one could only count on lower operating costs, because diesel fuel cost less than petrol at that time. On the other hand, the hard work of the engine did not match the exclusive character of the S Class. Only the V8, 400, 420 and 500, and V12, 600 units worked velvety. The weaker V8 version had a capacity of 4.2 L and developed 279 to 286 horsepower, while the larger, 5-liter version had slightly more, 320 to 326 horsepower. However, the more important parameter was the torque, reaching 480 Nm. The basic V8 generated 400 Nm, so, to put it colloquially, there was something to drive. The phenomenal parameters were given by the V12 with a capacity of 6 liters and power of 394 to 408 horsepower. The maximum torque reached the value of 580 Nm, which ensured acceleration to 100 km per hour in less than 7 seconds. It is also worth adding that the 6-cylinder petrol units were combined with manual transmissions as standard, automatic at an additional charge. Diesel and petrol V8 and V12 versions were available only with automatic. Since 1995, new, more efficient 5-speed transmissions were used in petrol units. Previously, 4-speed transmissions were used in diesels until the end of production. Of course, the drive was realized through the rear axle. Which engine to choose? Choosing an engine for a car like the S Class is a completely different story than in popular cars. First of all, you need to think about what you expect from the car. If your Mercedes is to be a classic that you want to drive to rallies with yellow plates, focus solely on the S500 and S600 versions. The length, extended to 5.2 meters, with 4 independent seats is best. The S420 or 400 SE, SEL are also good material, but they will never be treated like the top versions. However, there is no point in being picky if you find a really nicely maintained example, even with an even smaller engine. Although the car is not really suitable for everyday driving, especially in the city, it can be treated as such. In such a case, the optimal choice will be the S320 or 300 SE version. It is worth noting that the latter designation also includes a 2.8 engine. In any case, you cannot expect good performance, although the manufacturer states that the S320 version accelerates to 100 km per hour in 8.9 seconds. You can't expect low fuel consumption either, although it's possible to get 12 to 15 liters. Manual gearbox versions will be more economical, but not as comfortable. It's hard to recommend a diesel for everyday use. Low fuel consumption is more of a theory, and higher service costs are a given. The engines are the weakest and most prone to failures, especially the 3.5-liter, and they don't fit the model at all. No wonder they're the cheapest and rather unwanted, although in our opinion a model in perfect technical condition, even with a turbodiesel, is a valuable classic. The timing drive of all engine versions is implemented by a solid chain, which can be assessed and probably continue to drive. Contrary to appearances, the engines are not electronically complicated or service-intensive. The costs of any repairs and standard replacements result mainly from the size of the engine and the number of cylinders. The S Class W140 can also be treated as an adventure or a passing acquaintance. Feel like a gangster, a king, an Arab sheikh, or simply feel the taste of luxury by buying a car for a year or two and then selling it. In this case, we recommend the mid-range V8 versions. On the one hand, good performance compared to the R6, on the other hand, good economy compared to the V12. In addition, high work culture and a pleasant sound. Even minor engine faults will not be as noticeable as in the R6. The principle is simple. If for some reason 2 cylinders stop working, you have 6 more. In this situation, the 6-cylinder engine is no longer suitable for anything. What's broken? It's hard to say anything about failure rates, but it's worth making some basic assumptions. Reliability and durability depend mainly on the history of a car of this age. Diesel engines are more prone to failures, especially the rather problematic 3.5-liter engine that tends to overheat. The cheapest to repair are the R6 petrol versions. The V8 is not much more expensive, but if something serious happens to the V12, you probably can't afford to repair it. It must be remembered that a new W140 costs several $100s, from 90 to 200,000 German marks. And over the course of 25 years only its market value has changed. Any mechanic can handle petrol R6s, so there's no need to be afraid of them. This is the optimal choice when buying this model, considering the costs. The only thing to be afraid of is problems with electrical wiring, cars after accidents, floods. Generally, electrics are not a problem in this car, and this despite such rich equipment. A real Mercedes, and around the 90s the last ones were produced, can be recognized precisely by the fact that even if the car is in poor condition, every element of the equipment works. In general, this model is one of the best made and therefore least failure-prone cars in this class. 10 years of design were not wasted. Although users of the C Class and E Class struggle with corrosion, in the S Class the body withstands much more. Even if there are traces of it, the sheets resist rust for a long time. When buying a relatively cheap model, you should focus on the engine and automatic transmission, because these are the most expensive areas. In addition, they directly affect mobility. It is also worth checking the rear axle for leaks. The same applies to the brake system. Intensive use quickly wears out pads and discs of average quality. The more powerful the engine, the larger the discs, but it is still worth considering replacing them with products with increased durability. Especially if you want to drive the car for several years. Is it worth buying? It depends on what for, but in our opinion it's always worth it. It's definitely not a car for a family that values economy, but the S Class is a class of its own, so it will always be a valuable car. Of course, we're talking about the W140 and earlier, because we don't have the best opinion about the W220. Thanks for listening to me. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and rate my video. If you know of any problems with this car that I haven't mentioned, be sure to write about them in the comments.
I have good news for you. Now, if you are planning to buy a used car, or learn more about your car, you no longer need to search for the information you need on the internet. We have collected everything in one place for you, on the website carme.pro. Here you can find out everything about the car, what brakes and at what mileage. Any problems with engines, chassis or gearboxes, which trim levels are better not to mess with, and how not to lose money buying a used car. You will learn all this on CarMe.pro.